The grand chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting soft, flickering light across the polished marble floor. The ballroom was alive with whispers and laughter, the sound of soft music filling the air. The candles on each table danced, their flames reflecting in the crystal glasses, creating a warm glow that made the room feel almost magical. Clara adjusted the delicate lace of her gown, feeling its soft fabric brush against her skin. She had never attended such a lavish event before, and the elegance of the ballroom made her both nervous and excited. Her heart beat faster as she scanned the crowd, catching glimpses of well-dressed guests talking in quiet, sophisticated tones. At the far end of the room, a man stepped out of the shadows, and Clara felt her breath catch. His presence was magnetic, tall, confident, and dressed in a perfectly tailored suit that seemed to have been made just for him. His eyes, dark and intense, locked with hers for a fleeting moment, and Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. He began to walk toward her, each step deliberate and measured. Clara's mind raced. Who was he? Why did she feel a strange sense of familiarity, as though they had met somewhere before? The music seemed to fade as the distance between them closed. "Clara," he said softly, his voice smooth and warm. "I've been looking for you." Clara's lips parted in surprise. She didn't recognize his name, yet his voice stirred something deep within her. She felt drawn to him, as though some invisible thread connected them. "Do I know you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I believe we are meant to meet tonight," he replied with a subtle smile. "There is something I must show you." Before she could respond, he extended his hand. The touch of his fingers sent an electric thrill through her, and Clara hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. The ballroom seemed to blur around her, as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them. He led her toward a secluded corner, away from the crowd and the prying eyes of the guests. The flickering candlelight created shadows that danced along the walls, wrapping them in an intimate cocoon. Clara's heart pounded in her chest, anticipation and curiosity mixing with a growing sense of desire. "Why here?" she asked, her voice hushed. "Why now?" "Because some things are meant to remain a secret," he said, his eyes darkening with intensity. "And tonight, we have a secret to share." Clara felt her pulse quicken. His closeness was intoxicating, the warmth of his presence sending a shiver down her spine. Every nerve in her body seemed to be alive, alert to his touch, his words, his gaze. He leaned closer, so close that she could feel his breath against her cheek. "Do you trust me?" he asked. Her answer was lost in a sudden rush of emotion. She wanted to say yes, though every part of her screamed caution. And yet, the pull between them was irresistible. With a trembling nod, she whispered, "Yes." A smile curved his lips, and he gently guided her toward the center of the ballroom. For a moment, it felt as though they were the only two people in the room, the music, the candles, and the crowd fading into nothing but a hazy glow around them. And then, as the music swelled, he pressed her hand against his chest, his heartbeat steady and strong. Clara felt a rush of warmth, a connection she couldn't explain. The secret of the Candlelit Ballroom was beginning to unfold, and neither of them knew just how far it would go. The music slowed, a soft waltz filling the space between them. Clara's hand remained in his, and she felt the heat of his palm, steady and reassuring. He led her in a careful turn, gliding across the marble floor as if they had danced together 1,000 times before. Every movement was smooth, almost hypnotic, and Clara found herself lost in the rhythm, in the warmth of his presence. Her eyes met his again, and for a moment, the world seemed suspended. The chandeliers flickered above, the flames reflecting like tiny stars in his eyes. He smiled, a small, knowing curve of his lips, and Clara felt her heart flutter as if it were trying to escape. "You move beautifully," he said softly, his voice a caress against her skin. "Like you were made for this moment." Clara felt a faint blush rise to her cheeks. She wasn't used to such attention, especially from someone who seemed so confident, so certain of every word he spoke. Yet she didn't resist. Instead, she let herself be drawn in, letting the warmth of his gaze and the closeness of his body guide her movements. As the dance continued, he leaned closer, his lips near her ear. "There's a place in this ballroom few see," he whispered. "A place meant for secrets and for moments that shouldn't be shared." Clara's breath caught. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the subtle brush of his shoulder against hers. Her curiosity surged, mixed with a thrilling sense of danger. "What kind of place?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You'll see," he said, his tone teasing but gentle. "Follow me." Without hesitation, Clara allowed herself to be guided. He led her through a narrow side passage hidden behind a velvet curtain. The soft glow of candlelight spilled through the opening, casting long shadows along the walls. The music from the main ballroom faded into a distant hum, replaced by the quiet intimacy of the hidden space. When they emerged, Clara's eyes widened. The secret chamber was small but elegant, lit only by a dozen candles arranged carefully on ornate stands. The flickering light created an almost dreamlike atmosphere, painting shadows that danced along the walls. The air smelled faintly of roses and wax, and Clara felt a strange thrill at being alone with him in such a private, secret place. He turned to her, his eyes dark with intensity. "This is where we can truly be ourselves," he said. "Away from everyone else, away from the expectations of the world." Clara's pulse raced. The way he looked at her made her feel vulnerable, yet safe, as if she could trust him with everything. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to say anything," he replied, stepping closer. "Just be here, with me." The distance between them closed until she could feel the warmth of his chest, the subtle strength of his presence pressing gently against her. Clara's mind spun, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty coursing through her. Every nerve seemed alive, every heartbeat a reminder of how close they were. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "There's something about tonight," he murmured, "something that feels inevitable. Don't fight it." Clara's fingers trembled as she placed her hand on his arm. The touch sent shivers up her spine. She had never experienced anything like this before, the combination of closeness, warmth, and a thrilling sense of secrecy. It was intoxicating, and she wanted more, even if she didn't fully understand it yet. For a long moment, they simply stood there, letting the candlelight wrap around them, letting the silence speak for what words could not. Every glance, every slight movement, seemed charged with meaning, with a growing connection that neither could deny. Finally, he whispered, "Clara, tonight is only the beginning. There's so much more to discover, so much more we can share." Clara felt her breath catch at his words. She knew he was right. Something had ignited between them, a spark that could not be ignored. And as the candlelight flickered across their faces, she realized that the secret in the ballroom was far more than just a hidden corner. It was the start of something irresistible, something she was eager to explore. The soft flicker of the candles cast dancing shadows across Clara's face. She felt as if the hidden chamber had wrapped them in a world of their own, removed from the ballroom, from the crowd, from reality itself. Every glance, every movement between them felt heightened, charged with an unspoken energy neither could ignore. He took her hand again, guiding her slowly toward the center of the room. His touch was warm, steady, grounding, and Clara couldn't help but notice how natural it felt, as if they had always been meant to be this close. The air seemed heavy with anticipation, a quiet tension that wrapped around them like the soft folds of her gown. "Do you trust me?" he asked again, his voice low, intimate, brushing against her ear like a whisper of silk. Clara swallowed hard. The question seemed simple, yet it carried a weight that made her heart race. She felt a surge of courage, a pull she couldn't resist. "Yes," she murmured, her voice trembling but certain. A slow smile curved his lips. "Good," he said, his eyes locking on hers. "Because some moments, some connections, only happen once." The words sent a shiver down her spine. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but the intensity in his gaze left no room for doubt. There was something about this night, this secret space, that made everything feel sharper, more vivid, more real. He stepped closer, their bodies now just inches apart. Clara could feel the warmth radiating from him, a subtle heat that made her knees weak. Her hands rested lightly on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her fingers. She felt a strange, thrilling vulnerability, yet also a sense of safety she hadn't known she could feel with someone. "You're incredible," he said softly, his voice carrying a sincerity that made her cheeks flush. "Being near you, it's impossible to ignore." Clara's pulse quickened. The closeness, the secrecy, the quiet intimacy of the candlelit room, it was intoxicating. She wanted to speak, to ask him what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she let herself be drawn by the magnetic pull between them. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered, grazing her skin in a way that made her shiver. "Clara," he murmured, his gaze intense, "I've never felt anything like this before." Her heart pounded at his words. She didn't know why she felt so connected to him, so drawn to him, but she couldn't deny it. Every nerve in her body was alert, every sense heightened, as if the room itself was aware of the electric tension building between them. Slowly, almost deliberately, he lowered his face toward hers. The space between them seemed to shrink, the world outside the candlelit chamber fading into a blur. Clara's breath caught in her throat, her hands trembling slightly against his chest. She could feel his warmth, his presence, the silent promise of something unknown yet irresistible. And then, just as their faces were close enough to touch, he paused, letting the moment linger. "Tonight is a secret," he whispered. "A secret just for us." Clara's breath hitched. The thrill of the forbidden, the intimacy of a hidden world, coursed through her. She felt a rush of excitement, mixed with an ache she couldn't name. This secret, this closeness, was unlike anything she had ever experienced. For a long moment, they simply held each other's gaze, the candlelight dancing across their faces, highlighting the intensity in their eyes. Clara felt her heart beating wildly, her senses alive with the tension and the anticipation of what might come next. "You're extraordinary," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "I've never felt anything like this." He smiled softly, his fingers brushing hers. "And neither have I. That's why tonight, this secret, matters." The world outside the chamber, the grand ballroom, the music, the laughter seemed distant, unimportant. All that existed was the secret space, this intimate moment, and the undeniable connection that was growing between them. Clara knew, with a mix of fear and thrill, that the night was far from over and that the secret in the candlelit ballroom was only beginning to reveal itself. The hidden chamber seemed to shrink around them, every candle casting shadows that danced like silent witnesses. Clara's heart raced, a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation making her palms clammy. She could feel him near her, the warmth of his body a constant, magnetic pull she couldn't resist. He stepped even closer, and she felt the faint brush of his fingers along her arm. The sensation was electric, and Clara's breath hitched involuntarily. It was as though every touch, every subtle movement, carried a message she could understand without words. "Clara," he said softly, his voice deep and smooth, "being here with you, it's different. Everything else disappears. Only you exist." Clara's eyes searched his, finding a sincerity that made her chest tighten. She felt the same pull, the same magnetic connection, a thrilling yet tender intensity she had never experienced. "I feel it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like nothing else matters." A slow smile curved his lips, and he reached for her hand again, this time holding it tightly yet gently. "Then let's forget the world for a while," he murmured. "Tonight, it's just us, this secret, and what we discover together." Her pulse quickened. The intimacy of the words, the closeness of the moment, was intoxicating. Clara felt a shiver run through her, a mixture of anticipation and desire that made her acutely aware of his presence. Each heartbeat, each glance, seemed amplified in the quiet chamber, heightening the tension that lingered between them. He leaned closer, his face just inches from hers, and she could feel the warmth of his breath, soft and tantalizing. "May I?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for permission. Clara's breath hitched, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She nodded slowly, unable to find words, yet wanting more than anything to see where this moment could lead. "Yes," she whispered. The space between them vanished as he pressed his lips gently against hers. The touch was electric, soft yet commanding, sending waves of warmth through her. Clara's eyes closed, and she felt herself melting into the sensation, her body responding instinctively to the closeness, to the intimacy of their secret. When he pulled back slightly, just enough to look at her, Clara felt her pulse racing uncontrollably. "You're breathtaking," he murmured, his lips brushing against her temple. "Being near you, it feels like I've found something I didn't even know I was searching for." Clara's cheeks burned, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration flooding her senses. She had never felt so seen, so desired, and yet so safe in someone's presence. Every word, every touch, was a spark that made her heart flutter and her mind spin. He took her hand again and guided her toward the center of the chamber. The candle light flickered across their faces, highlighting the intensity in their eyes, the subtle longing that neither could hide. "There's a freedom here," he whispered, "a chance to be ourselves without anyone else watching. Isn't that irresistible?" Clara felt a thrill at his words, a shiver that ran from her shoulders down to her fingertips. She nodded, unable to resist the pull of his presence, the allure of this shared secret. "It is. I've never felt anything like this," she admitted, her voice trembling with emotion. He smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then let's make the most of it," he said, his voice low, intimate. "Tonight is ours, and this secret is only the beginning." Clara's heart raced at the promise in his words. She knew that what was happening between them was extraordinary, a moment that would linger in her memory long after the candles had burned out. The thrill of secrecy, the intensity of connection, made every second feel alive, charged with possibility. For a moment, they simply stood there, holding each other's gaze, letting the candlelight wrap around them like a soft, golden haze. The world outside the ballroom, the music, the crowd felt distant, almost unreal. All that existed was the secret, this intimacy, and the undeniable pull drawing them together. And as Clara felt the warmth of his hand in hers, the quiet intensity of his gaze, she realized that this night in the Candlelit Ballroom was more than a fleeting moment. It was the start of something irresistible, a secret that neither of them could or wanted to ignore. The hidden chamber seemed suspended in time, the flickering candlelight casting shadows that danced along the walls like silent witnesses to their growing closeness. Clara's breath came faster now, her heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the unspoken tension between them. Every movement, every glance, felt heightened, charged with an electric energy neither could ignore. He stepped closer, his fingers brushing lightly against her waist. The touch was gentle yet deliberate, sending a shiver through her that traveled from her shoulders to her fingertips. Clara's pulse raced, a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and a thrilling sense of vulnerability. She felt as if the world outside had ceased to exist. Only the two of them remained, wrapped in the intimacy of the secret. "Clara," he murmured, his voice low and magnetic, "there's something about tonight, about this moment, that feels inevitable. Like it was meant to happen." Her breath caught at his words. She didn't fully understand it, yet she felt the same pull, the same magnetic connection that seemed to bind them together. I feel it too," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's like nothing else matters when I'm with you." He smiled softly, a flicker of warmth in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "Then let's not waste it," he said, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. The contact, though brief, sent a thrill through her, a delicate fire that ignited with every brush of his fingers. Clara's lips parted slightly as he leaned in, the warmth of his presence overwhelming yet intoxicating. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the quiet intensity of his gaze holding her captive. Her hands rested lightly on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her fingers, grounding her even as desire and anticipation surged through her. "You're extraordinary," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Being near you, it feels like discovering something I didn't even know I was searching for." Clara's cheeks flushed at his words, her body responding instinctively to the closeness and intensity of the moment. She had never felt such a connection with anyone before, so immediate, so profound, and so undeniably magnetic. Every nerve in her body was alert, every sense heightened, as though the candlelight itself was magnifying the energy between them. He took her hand, entwining their fingers, and led her in a slow, deliberate circle. The motion was gentle yet intimate, their bodies close enough that she could feel every subtle movement. Clara's mind spun with the thrill of secrecy, the allure of intimacy, and the undeniable pull of attraction that seemed impossible to resist. "There's freedom here," he whispered, his lips brushing near her ear. "A chance to be ourselves, without anyone watching, without judgment. Isn't that intoxicating?" Clara's pulse quickened at his words. The thrill of secrecy, the allure of forbidden closeness, made her feel alive in a way she hadn't before. She nodded, unable to resist the magnetic pull of his presence. "It is. I've never felt anything like this," she admitted, her voice soft but certain. He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips, and drew her closer. "Then let's let tonight be ours," he said. "This secret, this moment, it belongs only to us." Clara's breath hitched as his hand lingered at the small of her back, the warmth of his touch sending shivers through her. She felt a thrill of anticipation, a mixture of excitement and longing that made her chest tighten. Every glance, every subtle movement, carried meaning, charged with the tension and desire that neither could deny. For a long moment, they simply stood there, the candlelight wrapping them in a soft, golden haze. Clara's mind was a swirl of sensation and emotion, her body alive with the intensity of the connection, her heart racing as she realized just how powerful the secret was. And as he leaned closer once more, their faces almost touching, Clara felt a rush of certainty. This night, this hidden chamber, this candlelit secrecy, was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, she knew it would be unforgettable, an experience neither of them could or wanted to forget. The secret in the Candlelit Ballroom had grown into something undeniable, irresistible, and impossible to resist. And both of them understood, without a word, that what they were sharing was far more than a fleeting moment. It was the spark of something extraordinary. The candlelight flickered, casting a golden glow that made the hidden chamber feel suspended in another world. Clara's heart pounded, her senses alert to every movement, every whisper, every subtle brush of his fingers. The air between them seemed electric, charged with anticipation and longing. He drew her closer, their bodies nearly touching, and Clara felt a thrill of excitement that made her knees weak. The warmth of him was undeniable, grounding yet exhilarating, a magnetic presence she couldn't resist. Every beat of her heart seemed to echo the rhythm of the unspoken tension that bound them together. "Clara," he murmured, his voice low and intimate, "there's something about this night, about this moment, that feels unlike anything else. I can't explain it, but I feel it. Don't you?" She nodded, her breath catching as she tried to find words. I feel it too," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. It's overwhelming, in the best way." He smiled, the kind of smile that made her stomach flutter. "Good," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because tonight is ours. And I want you to experience it fully, without hesitation, without fear." Clara's pulse raced. The closeness, the intimacy, and the secrecy of the moment made every sensation sharper, every heartbeat louder. She felt herself leaning into him, drawn by a force she didn't understand but couldn't resist. I want that," she whispered, barely audible. His gaze softened, dark and intense, and he reached out, gently taking both her hands in his. "Then let's not hold back," he murmured. "Let's embrace this, and see where it leads." A shiver ran down her spine at his words. The hidden chamber, the candlelight, the quiet intimacy, it all combined to create a moment that felt suspended outside of time. Clara felt alive in a way she hadn't known she could, her senses heightened, her body attuned to every subtle movement he made. He leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a soft, tantalizing touch that sent a wave of warmth through her. Clara's eyes closed instinctively, her hands pressing lightly against his chest as the sensation washed over her. It was electric, thrilling, yet tender, a perfect balance of intensity and care that left her breathless. When he pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes, Clara felt her heart racing uncontrollably. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, his fingers tracing a gentle line along her arm. "Being near you, it feels like discovering something I never knew I needed." Clara's cheeks flushed, a mixture of excitement and vulnerability flooding her senses. She had never felt such a powerful connection, one that was both thrilling and comforting, both intense and tender. Every glance, every touch, every word carried weight, creating a bond that neither of them could ignore. He guided her to the center of the chamber again, their movements slow and deliberate. The candle light flickered, creating shadows that danced along the walls, echoing the rhythm of their unspoken intimacy. "Clara," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "this secret, this night, it's only the beginning. There's so much more we can discover together." Her heart skipped a beat at his words. She felt a rush of anticipation, a thrill of desire, and a comforting sense of trust all at once. She nodded slowly, her fingers intertwined with his. I want that too," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. "I want to see where this goes." He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips, and pulled her into a gentle embrace. The warmth of his body, the quiet strength in his arms, and the intensity of his gaze made her feel cherished and alive at the same time. For a long moment, they simply held each other, letting the candlelight wrap around them, letting the quiet intimacy speak louder than any words could. Clara realized, with a thrilling certainty, that this night the secret in the candlelit ballroom was far from ordinary. It was the spark of something extraordinary, something neither of them could deny. And as their eyes met, full of unspoken promises, she knew that the secret they shared was only the beginning of a story neither would ever forget. The hidden chamber was bathed in a soft golden glow, the flickering candles casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. Clara's heart raced, every nerve alive with anticipation. Tonight had been a journey, a dance of stolen moments and whispered secrets, and now, as she stood so close to him, she realized how much she had been waiting for this without even knowing it. He reached for her hands again, holding them gently yet firmly. His eyes, dark and intense, seemed to see straight into her soul. "Clara," he whispered, his voice low and smooth, "being here with you, it feels like the world has shrunk to just this room, just us. Nothing else exists." Her breath caught. The sensation of being seen, truly seen, sent shivers down her spine. I I feel it too," she admitted softly, her fingers tightening around his. "It's like the rest of the world doesn't matter when I'm with you." He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. "Good," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because tonight, this moment, it belongs only to us. No one else, no interruptions, just us." Clara's pulse quickened. She could feel the warmth of his presence, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her touch. The intimacy, the secrecy, the closeness all combined to create a sensation she had never experienced before. Every glance, every movement, every word between them felt heightened, electric, and impossible to resist. He leaned closer, his lips almost brushing hers. "May I?" he asked, his voice a whisper meant only for her. Clara's breath hitched. She felt a thrill of anticipation, a mixture of excitement and longing. Nodding slowly, she whispered, "Yes." The moment their lips met, it was as if the world outside the chamber ceased to exist entirely. The touch was gentle, yet it carried a depth of emotion and intensity that made her knees weak. Clara closed her eyes, letting herself be consumed by the sensation, by the closeness, by the undeniable connection they shared. When he pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes, she felt her chest tighten with longing and delight. "You're extraordinary," he murmured, his fingers tracing a gentle line along her arm. "I've never felt anything like this before." Clara felt a blush rise to her cheeks, but also a sense of exhilaration. She had never known a moment could feel so alive, so intimate, so profoundly perfect. Neither have I, she whispered, her voice soft but steady. I've never felt this before. He smiled softly, leaning his forehead against hers. Then let's make a promise, he said, his breath warm against her skin. A promise to remember this night, this secret, and the connection we share. No matter what happens, no matter where we are, tonight will be ours. Clara's heart swelled. The thought of carrying this memory, this secret, with them made her chest ache with a mixture of joy and longing. She nodded, her lips curving into a small, genuine smile. I promise, she whispered. For a long moment, they simply held each other, letting the candlelight wrap around them like a soft, golden cocoon. The flickering flames reflected in their eyes, creating a private universe where nothing else mattered. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle touch carried meaning, charged with the intensity of the night and the intimacy of their shared secret. Finally, he stepped back slightly, his hands lingering on hers. Clara, he said, his voice thick with emotion, this is only the beginning. There's so much more to discover, so much more to experience, together. Her chest tightened with anticipation, excitement, and a thrilling sense of possibility. She realized that the secret in the Candlelit Ballroom had changed everything. It had awakened something in her, a desire, a connection, a spark that could not be ignored. Clara smiled softly, her fingers brushing against his. I want that, she said, her voice filled with certainty. I want to see where this goes, with you. He smiled in return, a mixture of relief, admiration, and affection in his eyes. Then tonight will be the first of many secrets we share, he whispered. And as the candlelight flickered and danced around them, Clara understood fully that the secret in the Candlelit Ballroom was not just a fleeting moment, it was the beginning of a story, a bond, and a connection that would linger long after the candles had burned out. A story of intimacy, trust, and irresistible attraction, wrapped in the magic of secrecy and the promise of more to come. The night had revealed its secret, and Clara knew that nothing would ever be the same again.